Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Got Next podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Baldwin, with my co-host Donovan Moore.
Yes, sir. What's going on, fellas?
Yep. Bennett Bones Nate Ash back with us today.
How y'all doing? Good to be back.
Absolutely. It's already one third of the season essentially already gone. So week 6, we're looking forward to the matchups this week. And so make sure you guys follow us on the Instagram and TikTok at the Got Next podcast for both accounts. And without further ado, man, let's get right into this week's matchup predictions.
3-pointers. Outside jumper for three at the buzzer.
Already. No, at this time of year, guys, it's buys going on. So before we get into these matchups, let's make sure we go through all the buys this week. It'll be the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Vikings. So make sure you set your lineups accordingly in fantasy. Next up, and first up, actually, we already had this game. I don't think any of us actually officially picked one in the chat. So I think everybody's just going to get a point here. I did have the 49ers. Did anybody actually think the Seahawks were going to win?
Actually, I'm not going to lie. I regretfully went with the Seahawks. I just saw how the Niners lost a couple games, and I was like, they're just giving some games away. Obviously, never doubted the Niners were the better team, but they're just looking a little rough there without C-Mac. But it looks like they're back on track for now.
For sure. But since we officially did not send our picks in before the game started, you're all good, B. You'll still get a point for this one. And we'll get started here with our first matchup of Sunday. I believe this one's in London. Is that right, guys? All righty. It'll be the Jags and the Bears. Not technically at the Bears, it'll be at London. So, B, who's winning this matchup?
I'm going to go with – God, it's tough. I'm going to go with the Bears. I'm just not that impressed with the Jaguars. And I know London's like their home away from home, and I know Doug Peterson's on the hot seat, so it gives them a sense of urgency to perform. But I think the Bears defense is pretty good, and I haven't seen Trevor Lawrence really do a good job against good defenses in the last couple of years for a majority of his career as well. And I think Caleb Williams is getting more in sync with his wide receivers, especially DJ Moore, old reliable vet, and Keenan Allen, and obviously Rome Odunze and him are going to build chemistry throughout the year. Offensive line still not even a question mark, just not very good, and their scheme offensively isn't good. But I think Eberflus is doing a pretty good job coaching their defense, and they know the defense is the strength of their team, and I think they can frustrate the Jaguars and get this win.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Jaguars in this one. They usually find success over in London, albeit they haven't had any much real success in American soil this year. I think they kind of bounce back a little bit. I think they have more of a sense of urgency this week. Like you mentioned, Doug Peterson could be on the hot seat a little bit. We already saw one coach get fired after L in London. So I think the Jaguars just have a little more urgency this week. I think it'll be a close game, but just with their recent success that they've always had out in London, I think they'll find a way to get the victory.
Yep. I'm also going to go with the Jags here. This is also going to be my upset of the week. I got the Jaguars beating the Bears. I just think that Trevor Lawrence is starting to put it together. I think the schedule's been a little bit softer these last couple of weeks, so it's helped him out a little bit. And I think that he'll continue to look better this week. Next up, we got the Commanders and the Ravens. This is a Maryland matchup here, or DMV matchup, however you want to call it. Dono, this is your team, man. Are they going to be able to get the dub here against the Ravens and Lamar Jackson?
Man, this might be the game of the week right here. Lamar versus Jaden Daniels. This is a matchup like you can only dream of. Just as a football fan, just with all the success Jaden Daniels has had, especially just these past few weeks. But just being a realist, I think the Ravens might win this one at home. The Commanders, we're still a young team. We still got a lot to learn, and albeit we're on a nice little winning streak right here. I feel like this might be a good little reality check for us going against a Super Bowl contender. And I have yet to see anybody truly stop the Lamar and Derrick Henry duo. So I think that's a lethal duo that it's only going to get better as the season progresses and it gets later. You got to run the football. So I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think it'll be a close game. Commanders will definitely show up for the test, but I think Baltimore at home will get it done.
Man, I'm really hoping the Commanders can get the upset here. I know the Ravens' defense looks like it's regressed a little bit since last year, for sure. and I know it keeps going up from Washington each week offensively. However, I still do think the Buccaneers are probably the best team they faced all year, and that was week 1. So, no criticism to them for not having that good of a game week 1, but they've been good ever since. Just think this is probably the hardest opponent they faced all year. And I think it could be a high-scoring game potentially, but I just do think, like you said, Dono, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry will have something to say about that and probably, get either the last possession or just, put up more points in general. But I really do hope the Commanders get an upset here and catch the Ravens on a bad day.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to see, but I do ultimately think the Ravens will win at home. I think if it winds up being a shootout, man, the Ravens defense is actually like a serious concern going forward. I think that's something that they've been able to hang their hat on the last couple of years. But if that's not going to be there, then I already don't trust this team. But if they don't have an elite defense, I definitely don't trust this team. But I think it'll be enough to get the dub at home against the Commanders this week. Next up, we got the Cardinals and the Packers. This one's kind of a little bit of a toss-up. B, who you got in this matchup?
I'm going to go with the Packers here. I know the Cardinals, I think Cardinals are one of those teams that you don't really know when they're going to show up and when they're not. I do think the connection from Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison Jr. could be lethal, or not could be. It is proven to be lethal. However, for some reason, I just feel like Kyler Murray, for as talented as he is, he's just a little inconsistent. Like, I picked Washington to beat them a couple weeks ago, but I did not think they were going to lose 42-14 on their home field. And it's like, Kyler, if you're like this good, why are quarterbacks getting drafted and, kind of playing better than you? You know what I mean? He definitely has his moments. Like, he always plays well against the Niners. He played really well against the Rams in week 2 and showed, the superstar he can be, but it's just the consistency isn't there. And I know it's more than just him. It's the coaching staff. It's the snake-bitten franchise of the Arizona Cardinals. But the Packers are just such organizationally and fundamentally so much better well-run than the Cardinals. And I do think, after last week, Jordan Love's starting to, get the pieces together and starting to get back in sync. And Matt LaFleur, I just trust more than Jonathan Gannon. And the Packers, at home are usually a good team. So I'll roll with the Packers here.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Packers at home as well. I think Jordan Love is starting to get back into rhythm after coming back off his injury. After he threw that pick last week versus the Rams, I saw him get into a groove a little bit. The Packers defense, quiet as kept, has been very solid as well. I believe they forced at least 1 to 2 turnovers every game this year. So they're playing good, sound football defensively. So I think their offense is starting to come along. And Josh Jacobs finally got a touchdown last week. So maybe that trend will continue here versus the Cardinals, but I like the Packers to win at home.
Also have the Packers in this matchup. B kind of talked about it, man. It's just the Cardinals are just inconsistent, man. You go from 14 to 42 is crazy, man. Especially against the Commanders, and then like you show that you can play really well against the Rams and then the Niners the week after. So like I don't know, maybe he just plays down his competition, but yeah, that was crazy. I think I'm gonna have the Packers in this matchup. I do like what they've kind of shown all year, and then getting Jordan Love back. We'll kind of see. I don't know if you guys saw the whole Romeo Doubs situation from last week. That was very interesting about him being upset about not getting enough, receptions and stuff.
I saw that.
We'll definitely have to see how that plays out. I think that's just an interesting recall. It looks like Christian Watson might play as well. So I don't know. I just feel like the Packers just have a lot of weapons and a lot of things that they could, throw at the Cardinals. Tucker Kraft's had a pretty good season as well. So, I think that they're poised to get a win this week. Anybody picking the Patriots in this matchup?
Drake May's first game, though.
You said who? Oh, yeah. Definitely Drake May's first start. Definitely something to say there. But then Ramondre Stevenson's out. So then you don't even have one of your best weapons in your first start. So good luck to Drake May this week, though. UNC guy. Next up, interdivisional matchup, the Bucks and the Saints. Both teams have looked, decent and been pretty good throughout the season, but who's going to get the win this week, B?
Well, I know it's Spencer Rattler's first start because Derek Carr's out for 4 weeks, and I don't know, maybe that could be a decent thing for the Saints. I know Derek Carr is a decent QB, but I kind of trust, Baker a little bit more and Kirk Cousins a little bit more than him. That was a great game that you saw last week between the Bucks and Falcons. Really, both quarterbacks in that game balled the most we've ever seen them, especially Kirk Cousins. And I just kind of trust the Bucks a little bit more than the Saints. Saints started 2-0 and looked really dominant, and then it's just kind of backpedaled since, albeit they've ran into tough opponents. But I don't expect Spencer Rattler to dominate his first game, even though the Bucs defense is wildly inconsistent. But yeah, I got the Bucs here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bucs as well. The NFC South is kind of an inconsistent division with all their teams. They'll win one, lose one. But I just think here, as you mentioned, Spencer Rattler's first start. Todd Bowles will definitely throw a lot of different looks at him that could confuse him, especially in his first game. And the Buccaneers offensively are very solid. Even without Rachaad White tomorrow, I think Chris Godwin could have a really good game here. Bucky Irvin's been pretty solid running the ball for them as well. So I'll take the Buccaneers to win this one.
Yeah, even without Rachaad White, I think the Bucs have this one. Bucky Irving's been really good for them, actually. He's been better than Rachaad White most weeks, actually. I think he's averaging about 4 to 5 yards per carry. He's had a different type of burst than Rachaad White has had. I think Rachaad White he's a really good receiving back. I don't know if he's a good rushing back. But we'll kind of just see what happens this week. Chris Olave has been kind of disappointing for the Saints. Alvin Kamara had that 1 week where he had like 3-4 touchdowns. I feel like he does that every year. He has 3-4 touchdowns and he kind of goes quiet after for a little bit. So I don't know. I do think the Bucs just have, a lot of talent here. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield playing at the top of his game right now. Can't pick against the Bucs right now, especially with the Saints starting a different QB this week. Next up, we have the Browns and the Eagles, two teams that are just kind of mid and honestly should be doing better with the talent that they have on their team. So, B, who's gonna win this matchup here?
I think the Eagles are going to win. I think Deshaun Watson just looks disgustingly terrible right now. And I know, Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson competed in that national championship between Clemson and Bama way back then. But the tides have turned badly for Deshaun Watson. And they honestly haven't been so good for Jalen Hurts. I feel like, we're all being realistic. What we all thought of him that night, he so valiantly lost the Super Bowl. I don't think the word is I don't think the perception of him is as good today. I think he's still star potential. But I think the Eagles as a team are kind of, thought of like that. Like, they used to be considered dogs. Now it's like you got to prove to me you're dogs. You can't just have good players on your team and be considered elite. Obviously, having A.J. Brown back is going to help tremendously. That's their number one weapon. Saquon's been really good for them. Offensive line's taking a little step back since Kelsey's been gone, but still all in all pretty good. The coaching is, I think, mid to sub-mid, honestly. And that could be the Eagles' demise later in the year. But, the Browns are a disaster. So on the next one there.
No, go ahead, B. Let me go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Eagles as well. Coming off the bye week, they got a lot of their stars coming back off injury. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I think they got Lane Johnson on the O-line coming back. This is just one of those games for the Eagles where if they lose, like it's almost like your coach should be fired. Like the Browns are going in a completely different direction. The season's not going too well for them. They could be a fire sale at the trade deadline. So this is one of those games the Eagles should win with ease. I can see Saquon having a big game here. Eagles really controlling the clock and just getting back to what won them games and got them to the Super Bowl a couple years back, running the football and then play action to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Dude, underrated part about the Eagles season so far, how Jalen Hurts has looked is just he hasn't had either of his top receivers for a couple weeks now. It's been like A.J. Brown hadn't really played since like the first couple weeks, I believe. And then immediately when Devonta Smith's supposed to be the number one guy, he gets a concussion. He's been out the last couple weeks too. So It's like you really only had Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert out there. And then your number one receiver was Jahan Dotson. So, while I can't excuse the interceptions on Jalen Hurts and the turnovers and stuff, he definitely needs to clean that up. That's kind of just been a thing for him throughout his career. But, definitely getting your two star receivers back should definitely help. I definitely think the Eagles will win this one. And, yeah, Deshaun Watson's just been abominable. He's been horrible. So, next up, we got the Colts and the Titans. It looks like Anthony Richardson will be playing in this one. I don't know if that changes anything. They might have looked better with Joe Flacco. So, B, are the Colts going to be able to get a win here against the Titans?
Yeah, I agree. They definitely look better with Flacco, but I'm going to go with the Colts just because it's like, which quarterback do I trust less? And the answer right now is Will Levis, even though Anthony Richardson isn't really trustworthy either, especially his health. But Will Levis is just like, you're watching those games, like just waiting for when's he going to make the crucial turnover to, give the game to the other team. It's kind of been how he's played throughout his NFL career, and that was, obviously the risk in drafting him. So I'm going to take the Colts here.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Colts as well. They're another one of those teams that are really up and down. So they lost last week to Jacksonville in a very close one with Flacco. So even with Jonathan Taylor out, I could see Anthony Richardson using his legs a little more. Albeit he's still coming back off injury, especially around the goal line. I can see them just relying on him to try to get some end zone carries. So I'll take the Colts in this one, but I think it could be a close game because the Colts also have a terrible pass defense, and then you got Hopkins and Ridley on the other side. So the key really is Will Levis for the Titans, but I'll take the Colts to win this one.
Absolutely. The key for this game lies behind center for both teams, and that's why ultimately I'm going with the Titans this week. Got to be the different guy, man. I just think that the Titans, man, they're so underrated as far as the talent that they have. I mean, Tony Pollard has actually had a pretty solid season. He looks better than he did ever in a Dallas uniform. I think, again, you mentioned D-Hop, you mentioned Ridley. They just have weapons all over. Tajay Spears is no slouch. Chigga Okonkwo is no slouch. Like, I feel like they just have a lot of weapons to be able to make it happen. Michael Pittman was supposed to be out on IR for like 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden he's questionable for the game this week. So it's like, what's really going there? Like, that's a huge change for Pittman. Like, so I don't really know if he's going to be fully healthy. Josh Downs looks pretty good, but I mean, is he good enough to be your number one receiver for the week? I'm not sure about that. And then Anthony Richardson, again, his health and then his actual performance when he does finish games, it just has been shaky all season. So I'm going to go with the Titans in this one. Just want to be different here. Next up, we got the Chargers and the Broncos. Kind of a pick 'em here, but I think ultimately I'm leaning one way. B, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, it's kind of a pick 'em. The Chargers haven't won in Denver in a long time, but I'll support the streak to end. I guess I'll pick the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Chargers coming off the bye week here. Denver, although they've been on I think a 3-game winning streak here, I think their defense has more so been carrying them. I think the Chargers will control the clock. J.K. Dobbins, I think J.K. Dobbins will bounce back here this week. He's had a quiet couple past weeks, albeit it's due to the game that the Chargers are in. They may be down, so they can't really rely on the run game. Herbert had a week to rest his ankle injury. I think it'll be very close, but I'm gonna take the Chargers to win this one.
Yep, ultimately I'm going to go with the Chargers. That was the team I was also leaning towards. Next up, B, the Steelers are going to be going on the road and facing the Raiders. Does that matchup scare you at all?
I mean, any Steeler game kind of I feel like is a close game, so it has your heart pounding towards the end. But I do think the Steelers pull this one out. I think there's pressure on Justin Fields to put together a good performance to maintain his starting job, because I think from an organizational perspective, the Steelers want to at least give Russ a look to see how he looks in that offense. But hopefully just Fields plays within himself, doesn't, takes calculated risks and takes care of the football. Raiders aren't that good. Devontae Adams is still out, and, it looks like he's still looking to get traded. Hopefully we can they keep saying we're in the mix. Let's just make the move and get this guy, because we need another good receiver playing across from Pickens, who has his own issues. But yeah, let's get that done. Let's get this dub.
This is more of a toss-up for me. The Steelers, at least the past few years, have struggled when playing at the Raiders. So this could be potentially a upset maybe, but the Steelers' defense is just too solid to lose to the Raiders, especially without Devontae Adams. So I will take Pittsburgh to win. But I think this could be a sneaky upset alert, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh just off the coaching and defense.
Yep. I think even if Justin Fields sucks, their backup Russell Wilson's better than anybody the Raiders have on their roster right now. So I'm going to go with the Steelers. I also trust their defense better, even though Max Crosby is a beast. TJ Watt is a different type of beast. So I'm going to go with the Steelers in that matchup. Another interdivisional matchup here, the Falcons and the Panthers, man. Ultimately, I feel like we all know who we're going with here. Is anybody picking the Panthers in this matchup?
No.
Cool beans. We can move on to the next one. Lions and the Cowboys, man. This was a controversial one last season. The Cowboys just snuck out a win against the Lions last year on a very, very difficult, a very brain fog kind of play. How do you feel about this matchup this year, B? Will the Lions get their comeuppance?
I think the Lions should get their revenge this year, just because the Lions, what they like to do to teams, just run the ball down people's throats. I know the Cowboys' defense looked good last week, but the Steelers don't particularly have a good offense. There's still no DeMarcus Lawrence, still no Micah Parsons. And the Lions just love, they love feasting on their opponents. They love running the ball down people's throats. The kind of, the team that Dan Campbell envisioned is coming in fruition right now. They're biting their opponents' kneecaps off. They're just going hard out physicaling, and being tougher than their opponents. So I think they see Dallas right now and they look weak and wounded and they just want to take advantage of that. So I think they get their revenge and they'd be 4-1 if they win this game. So and Dallas will be 0-3 at home and 3-0 on the road. So I mean, it's interesting how the tides turn kind of opposite of last year for them.
I think this could potentially be a high-scoring game here, but I'm going to go with the Lions in the end. I think their offensive line, especially without Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, will just give Goff the time when he drops back, and then David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. That's a very lethal 1-2 duo at running back. So I think the Lions will win just with the strength of their O-line. They have a very improved defense compared to what they had last year. So the Lions have made a lot of improvements. Dallas at home is no slouch. I think CeeDee Lamb could have a big game here, but I think in the end, the Lions are just too potent offensively to lose this game. So I think the Lions will win.
Definitely think this will be a high-scoring affair. I feel like these are two very pass-happy offenses, especially in the last couple weeks. But I do ultimately think the Lions are going to win here. The Cowboys are just mid. And this is they really snuck out that win last week, man. That was crazy at the end, man. But I got to give all the credit to Dakota down the stretch, man. That's something that I have not seen a lot from him. When the team's down, being able to rally back and then lead an entire drive down the field, game-winning drive down the field, and then Tolbert gets injured on the play before, and then comes right back in and gets a touchdown pass. So it was really good. It was really good for them. Really a big win. I feel like if they lost that one, they kind of might have lost any hope in the season. But I don't think this week's going to be much of a bounce back, man. I think the Lions are just a dominant team. You talked about the run game. The Cowboys struggle against run games that are good. And sometimes the run game is not even that good for some teams, and they'll still run it down their throat. So, you have an actual really good run game here, and then the receivers, they're going to throw it down the field. I feel like the Cowboys are going to be playing catch-up. This is a really fantasy-friendly game. If you have any fantasy players on either team, you should definitely think about playing them this week. Next up, we have the Bengals and the Giants. Daniel Jones has actually looked really good this season outside of probably I think it was the first game of the season. So yeah, do you ultimately have them, even putting up a fight against the Bengals this week at home?
I think they definitely put up a fight. The Giants are actually kind of looking mid. So is the whole NFC East besides, Washington right now. Danny Dimes is a hard quarterback to kind of project and rate because he's not bottom tier. He's not total bust because he got his contract, but he's not good either. So it's hard to distinguish there. But Malik Neighbor is still going to be out, so it's really annoying for fantasy. But also, it's a must-win for the Bengals. I think they do get back on track here and beat the Giants. When it's pitch black outside and the lights are shining on Sunday Night Football, I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are poised for a big game and can kind of continue the chemistry that they have developed for years, but particularly last week against the Ravens. I think they build on that. And I know the Bengals defense is super untrustworthy, but I do think they have too many dogs on their offense for the Giants without Malik Neighbors to stay with on the scoreboard.
Neighbors is still out this week?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one. Even with their defensive troubles, they should have beaten Baltimore last week. They were a botched snap away from maybe kicking the field goal in overtime to win it, or Joe Burrow not throwing that pick late in the game. The Bengals are a solid team offensively. Their defense has been the issue. The Giants will put up a fight definitely at home, but I just think at the end, the triplet of Higgins, Chase, and Burrow will just find a way to win this game. So I'm going to take the Bengals, and maybe they could try to make a push for the wild card, try to get their season back on track after this week.
Bengals. I don't really think there's a whole lot to talk about here. Shout out Daniel Jones for playing pretty well recently, and then shout out Wan'Dale Robinson, man, for stepping up pretty good. He actually looks pretty good in their offense. I like him as their number 2. Another interdivisional matchup, man. This is kind of a big one. I feel like, especially for the Jets. Is this a must win for the Jets, B?
Well, absolutely. They just fired Saleh and replaced him with their D coordinator. It's interesting because their offense was the real struggle of the team, and it seemed like Saleh, the head coach, was holding the defense down. But ultimately, the head coach is responsible for both sides of the ball, and their offense just under his tenure as head coach had just been abysmal. To say the least. And it was still looking pretty abysmal with Aaron Rodgers. No, he might be a little past his prime, but it was not supposed to look like this. But through it all, they kept Nathaniel Hackett, but then they demoted him. So, like, even though he might have the title of offensive coordinator, he's really just, a man standing there collecting his paycheck, I guess, because they promoted, Todd Downing, quarterback coach, to the play caller. So, I mean, I don't know. I still think Aaron Rodgers, has a huge say in this offense, no matter, who's the title of OC. But really, it's about him needing to play better. Josh Allen, the last couple of years, struggled against the Jets on the road. He always dominates them at home, but on the road has those multiple pick games. He hasn't thrown a pick yet this season, but boy, was he terrible last week too, Josh Allen. He was like 9-30. The way they lost that game, the Texans, was so unacceptable how they threw 3 straight times from their own end zone to allow them to, get off a field goal with the little time they had left. So both these teams, I think, are pretty desperate for a win. But the Jets lose this game, they're probably not. The Bills are probably going to win this division and probably win it forever because, Aaron Rodgers ain't going to be there for much longer, and the Dolphins kind of look like they're stuck in a tragedy with Tua's contract, and then the Patriots the Patriots are not the Patriots anymore. But ultimately, this is really tough. I'm going to pick the Bills because if from the Bills' perspective, they lost this Monday night game at New York last year in Week 1 when Aaron Rodgers had the Achilles. Like, they just fired their coach. You can't have 2 back-to-back year embarrassing losses to the Jets when it's all in your favor. Like, the Jets have a new head coach. Like, I know they have Aaron Rodgers still, but Josh Allen's better than Aaron Rodgers right now, and the Bills are a better team than the Jets right now. So, I know their defense and a lot of pieces on the Bills have, changed over the last year, but I think this is still a must-win for both teams. I think the Bills are the better team.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bills to win this matchup as well. You couldn't play any worse than Josh Allen played last week. I believe he was 9 for 30. Maybe only had 100-something yards passing. It's a primetime game here to retain their division lead, 2-game losing streak, and they haven't really looked good offensively these past couple of games. So I think Josh Allen will bounce back, have a big game this week, and I do think the Bills keep the Jets in their misery and get another victory and get a victory here.
It's hard for me to see the Jets losing again this week, honestly, but I do think ultimately I'm going to go with the Bills. I think it's crazy how the narrative has flipped now that Aaron Rodgers is on the team for the Jets. Because like last year, you had who's it? Mac Jones? Was that the guy?
Zach
No.
Wilson.
Zach Wilson. Yeah, my bad. They're so mid, both of them. I get them so mixed up. Zach Wilson was your QB last year, and then the whole time it's like, hey, if we get a new QB, we have enough to make it we have enough to make it work. And then Aaron Rodgers comes in and they're like, no, we don't have enough. We need Devontae Adams now. It's like, bro, that's not what the problem is here. If Aaron Rodgers plays better, then Robert Saleh doesn't get fired. Then Devontae, you don't have to go out and get Devontae Adams because Garrett Wilson is supposed to be your Devontae Adams. Garrett Wilson was on this perfect trajectory of being like, a top receiver, and then now Aaron Rodgers is there. They're off. Their rhythm is off together. They don't really have the cohesiveness. And I was like, all right, we just needed to get a new guy in here rather than, build camaraderie with the guy that's already there. And then you got Aaron Rodgers skipping, mini camps and stuff like that where he could have built that camaraderie with Garrett Wilson. But, he wants to be out in Egypt doing ayahuasca and whatnot. So, Aaron Rodgers is just not locked in, bro. And I've been trying to say that for a little bit. I didn't see him coming back and being elite because the last time we saw Aaron Rodgers on the field, he was trash in a Packers uniform. It's one of the worst seasons he's ever had. So I don't really see them turning it around this week. It's hard for me to pick against them because I feel like they need a win so bad. They should be so desperate. But I mean, I just feel like Josh Allen's better. James Cook was supposed to be out, and now James Cook looks like he's playing. So yeah, ultimately I'm gonna have to go with the Bills in this one. It's gonna be a sad day for Jets fans. But what's new? Does anybody else have anything to add?
Nah, I think you really just covered it all there, and I'm curious to see if the Jets have any fight left in them because I'm actually kind of wanting to see them win because they play the Steelers next week, and I'm going to the game, and it's like, are they really going to lose this many games in a row with Aaron Rodgers? Yeah. But like you said, the last time we saw Aaron Rodgers in a Packer uniform, they lost to the Lions at home in a game that if they won, they were going to make the playoffs. Yep. That's really what kind of changed the course of two franchises. I think now the Lions built that momentum and have taken the league by storm since that game. So you said it all.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you guys for watching this episode, man. Make sure you stick with us and continue to watch our matchup prediction episodes. We will catch you guys next week. Have a good one.